Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome back to Modernize or Die podcast, the CFML News Edition. It's May 26th. I'm Gavin Pickin, a software consultant for Auto Solutions, and the lead architect for Auto Solutions, Mr. Brad Wood.
What's up?
How's it going?
Just correcting a little typo in my blog post that I saw from the show notes. I was like, did I spell favorite wrong? Oh, now they know what I spelled wrong. I'll never live this down. No, I'm doing good. Just, Memorial Day weekend, trying to get recovered. I told Gavin that, it's too early to be a Monday. And he was like, you mean Tuesday? I'm like, that's even worse. Yep. It's already Tuesday.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are going to shop for the podcast today thinking it's probably Monday instead.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it. But it's good to be back. Got lots of stuff to do.
Yep, busy weeks. Last week was a busy week too. So let's get into it. But first, let's thank our sponsors, Auto Solutions. So without them, this wouldn't be possible. We released CFcast.com last week, which is Auto's brand new platform, and the first product on there is our Into the Box 2020 conference. So if you were attendee at Into the Box, you can access them. You should have got an email to be able to sign up for CFcast, and then you should have access to all that content right away. So there's about 28 sessions, I think, in all. A lot of great content from Into the Box that we did just a few weeks back. And if you did not attend, we will be adding the option to purchase that package very soon, but you can watch the keynotes, which are included there as free items inside that package. So go check it out, cfcast.com. We're going to try and get a lot of good content from Autos over there, including Brad's screencast on Command Box 5, which he just finished releasing YouTube. So we're going to try and put them all in one place so you can see them all there. But
so in the past, it's taken like weeks to get all the videos and stuff edited and processed, but what was our turnaround time getting this out? I know I actually had nothing to do with the CFcast stuff. That was all Eric and Luis, and I think Gavin, but we just
basically
finished.
about a week roughly, and to be honest, it was mainly because we were trying to get the new CFcast out the door with all the email sign up process and the coupons so the attendees would get the free access and everything. So it's definitely a very beta release. It's pretty slick though. I'm excited about what that's going to be.
It works, and the site's fast too.
Yep, he's using Vue.js, CB Inertia. So
yeah, we wrote it in Node. Just kidding, we wouldn't do that.
Well, Brad wouldn't. Brad wouldn't let us.
How dare you?
Yep. So so that's one of the new ways you can support Auto Solutions is be able to purchase a subscription, which will be providing free and paid content on that service, and that'll be coming soon too. But if you're an attendee, go check out those videos, and if you're not, watch out. We'll be offering that package available for purchase soon as well.
Perfect. Hello world, and Edgardo.
Yep. And we also want to thank our Patreon supporters. We actually had one of our supporters decide to up his support. So Gary Knight, who was previously a Patreon supporter, just bumped up his Patreon support level. I think it was basically 5 times what he was previously doing. So it's a pretty big bump.
Is that like in an anime when the character powers up to the next level and their hair gets bigger? Is that what Gary Knight did?
From what I recall, Gary Knight does not have big hair.
Maybe he got a little bit of hair then. It's like it's the next level of powering up. It's going to be crazy psycho hair.
I don't know, Gary, you can tell us that. But we obviously thank him for his support, and we're basically at 47% fully funded of our podcast from our Patreon site. So patreon.com/autosolutions. We got a lot of great supporters there. If you're not able to help us, at least thank them for their support. And you can chip in other ways. So, but we're really appreciative of all your support. It does go a long way to making this possible. So we thank you guys. Okay, time for some news. So fresh off the press this week, Autos webinar. So we've got another Autos webinar. We've been so busy Into the Box and everything. I don't even know if we announced this before, but we're having the CB Security webinar this Friday. So Friday
So who's
29th,
doing it?
Luis Mahano. So CB Security
that
version
guy?
2.0 is a big update. A lot of great things have been added into it. It's definitely a full security suite now. So it's a little different from CB Security 1 if you're using it. So I highly recommend that you check out this process. Will de Bruyn's been doing a lot of blog posts on the whole process of converting over from CB Security 1 to 2, which are great resources too. But definitely check out this webinar. It's free online, and it's going to be on the 29th at 11 a.m. Central, so 9 a.m. Pacific. And
So do you know if this webinar is targeted at people who are on cybersecurity 1 and wanted to upgrade, or just anybody who wants to learn about cybersecurity?
I think it's for anybody because a lot of people are looking at REST and JWT, and that's one of the big things in cybersecurity that we've added all the JWT pieces, so it's going to be more.
The JOT.
Yep, the JOT, as some people call it. I don't like that name, but that's okay.
It has a nice ring to it, though. It seems like it's being more like a Jude, if you're really going to just pronounce it phonetically,
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I found the description. An hour-long webinar. Luis will give you a complete overview of the cybersecurity module for ColdFusion applications. You will also be creating an API and securing it with JWT all in 1 hour. Custom authentications. Purpose webinars introduce capabilities and give a hands-on approach to securing your API. Well, there you go.
Yep.
There's the description of it.
Jam-packed.
Yeah, I've been so busy with Into the Box. Like, Into the Box gets done, and you're like, where do I go with my life? Everything in my life was preparing me for Into the Box, and now it's over. So yeah, I'd lost track of an upcoming webinar. So I'm glad that Paulina's around to keep these things rolling.
Yep, and another good thing about this too is it leads into the Hero to Superhero workshop that Luis will be doing in June. You use CB Security in there, and as you build a REST API. So this is a good sort of intro. Get a taste test of it, see if you like it, and then go from there. So
Taste testing.
Yeah.
Like a wine tasting.
Exactly. So that's free. Go register online, and Brad's already sharing the link, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Yep, link's in there.
Perfect.
Link is so like 30 seconds ago, dude.
Okay, well, the next one I'll let you talk about. Command Box 5.1 was released.
You said it wrong. Command Box 5.1 released. Yeah, so this is, well, I was going to say it's a long time coming. It seems like every Command Box release takes forever. But then again, it seems like every Command Box release is like waiting on a version of Lucy to come out. It's a reoccurring theme. You'll notice the Command Box 5.1 release came immediately on the heels of Lucy 5.3.6, which is not a coincidence. So we'd had quite a collection. I think about 37 completed tickets since the initial 5.0 release. And as usual, it's about an even number of bug fixes and new enhancements. A lot of pull requests came in from the community. Big things are Java 14 support. Java 14 came out like a week after Command Box 5.1, and I just tweaked the homebrew requirement to say any version of OpenJDK is good. And then, boom, Java 14 comes out. They removed Pack 200. Doesn't work in Command Box. I'm like, curse you, Perry the Platypus. So I removed the Pack 200 stuff. So you'll notice if you download Command Box 5.1, the box.exe or the box binary is a little bit bigger. It's about 80 megs now. That's just because it's not as compressed. So the good news is it actually starts up faster the first time because it doesn't have to go in and compress everything. The bad news is just the download is a little bit bigger. Most people tend to prefer, with internet speeds these days, most people say, man, the download size isn't that big. Yeah, the big Phineas and Ferb fan, Dan. So anyway, so Java 14, we're no longer doing Pack 100. We added the ability, and this is Luis was hollering at me. You can start just a pure HTML server now. Luis is doing a lot of work, and he wanted to just start up servers on a port just to serve static files, no ColdFusion. And Luis had to use Node for it because Node lets you do that. And Luis is like, it feels dirty. Why do I have to use Node just to start up a server? He's like, Command Box do that? And I'm like, yeah, it'd probably be pretty easy. So you can do server start CF engine equals none because by default, we assume you want ColdFusion. But if you do that, you'll get a server. All the server.json stuff applies, all the ports, all the heap settings. But you can run this on like, I think I tested it on as low as like 25 megs of heap. It did not stay up for long, but it will actually start on 25. But you can be pretty safely with like 64, 100 meg. Just a very small server. Just serves static files. Great for local testing and stuff.
It'd be really cool if you add hot reloading in there later. I'm just messing
Yeah,
with you.
well, somebody was on Twitter saying we should add in browser sync, and actually, John Wilson, I think, has a browser sync module he's been playing with. So I don't know, I'm excited to see what people will do with it. We also added in the command box light and command box thin binaries, which we talked about in our keynote into the box. Command box light's built on Lucy Light, so it's like a smaller version of command box. Does all the same stuff. It just doesn't have all the extensions in it. And then the command box thin binary is some stuff we use with our Docker images to really just scale down the size of the image to be as small as possible. A couple other enhancements, like, you can start the working directory out at a certain folder in your hard drive, which is, Gavin's been playing with a lot of integrations directly in like VS Code or file system. You want to be able to right click and say open command box here. So we're supporting some of that stuff. And then kind of the big feature that we've had kind of documented for a long time, and big thanks to Miguel, our kind of runwire expert now on the Java end, is we got the ability to add custom options into your server tray menu. So you can, your little icon you get in the system tray when you start a server, you can add your own menu items in there. And you could do that before, but the only thing they could do was like open a URL or open a file system location, which is a little boring. Now you can create a custom menu item with a custom icon that does anything you want. You just give it a command you want it to run, and you can open VS Code, you can open Windows Calculator, you can run an npm install. You could, any command you can run at the command line, you can tie that to a menu item. So this gives you the ability to add a, local functionality to your servers that's thoroughly customized to your application. You can put it in your server.json, your config defaults. I'm super excited about that, and that's all part of 5.1. So it's already out there on the download page. It's already added to Homebrew. All the upload locations are updated, and the docs as well. The command box docs are updated for 5.1. The biggest change in the docs was just all the documentation on custom menu items, which is pretty exciting. We spent a lot of time working on that, but that's out there. And of course, it's using Lucy 5.3.6. I skipped Lucy 5.3.5 due to bugs. Lucy 5.3.6 appears to be a very stable Lucy release, which, thank you. We were looking forward to that. There's a lot of class loading issues, and even Java 11 compatibility issues in 5.3.4, 5.3.5. So Lucy 5.3.6 seems to be pretty darn stable, and so I was kind of waiting for that to drop and updated command box to that. So yeah, that's it. Give it some testing. Let us know if you find anything. Matthew Clemente actually already found a little bug that affects Mac users when you start a Lucy server. So there may be a command box 5.1.1 patch release that sneaks out this week to address that. But I'm kind of waiting to see just how many people it affects to see how big of an emergency it is,
Yeah, Mac users. Go figure. It just works, except when it doesn't.
I throw the elbow at Mac users, but it's actually just a bug that we screwed up in our code, so it's not really the Mac users' fault. But
yeah,
I'm always happy to blame Mac users if I can.
Yeah, well, they're always poking fingers at Windows users, so sometimes you got to poke back.
We both deserve it.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Okay, well, we also got a blog post out about Into the Box announcement. So it was really hard to keep track of all the stuff that was flying out during the keynote. So Pauline is writing this little write-up for us. So it basically runs through a little bit about the conference itself, but also a lot of the, they basically highlight all the coming soons and what we've been working on recently. So this blog post is for all of everybody that went to the conference or maybe who missed out, but it's a really nice little blog post that sort of breaks down the different things like ColdFusion 6, ForgeBox Business, Testbox, Relax, Swagger, sort of all the different big pieces. So
we had so many things we announced, we kind of thought we sort of need to put them all together to remember everything that we've put out there. So
yeah, I mean, everybody saves it up for Into the Box, so we got lots of good things to tell you, and that's what makes it so exciting. But but yeah, so that little blog post is pretty good there if you want to read through it. I know a lot of people say, what about this and what about that? And yeah, remember the keynotes are free, so you can go watch them on CFcast anytime and get a recap of those or read that blog post.
Boom.
Cool. So just in case you missed it, yes, the Into the Box videos are on CFcast. If you were an attendee, you should have the email. There's a little coupon code in the email that you can use to sign up. We also have a new Twitter account for CFcast, so CFcasts plural. So CFCASTS is a new Twitter account, and we're going to be trying to basically let you guys know when new content is dropping and when new things are coming out. So it's another Twitter account for you to follow.
So if you were an attendee to Into the Box, you purchased a ticket, and you haven't gotten your videos on CFcast, the email, the subject says CFcast access to Into the Box 2020 gifts. So you can search through your spam folder, and you should have that in whatever email address you had registered under the conference for. And there's a link in there that says to redeem this gift, click on the following link. You click on that, create your account, and it associates all the content for you.
Yep. And then just a reminder, ColdFusion 6 release candidate has been released, and we need some feedback. So I know our team has been going through. We're working really hard on the documentation to make sure that everything is up to date in the migration guide. But it is a major release, and with major releases, some things that were deprecated are now removed. Things break, and we don't want it to be as painful as it might be for some people upgrading, because we got people still using ColdFusion 4, and we try and make those guides good. So the more feedback you guys give us, the better docs we can make, and hopefully the smoother process. I know Luis has been going through updating a lot of modules that need updating, and updating projects, and in basically less than an hour, he updated several of our bigger projects. So, I mean, it's a little bit of work, but with the right information, it can be pretty smooth. So, please test it. Let us know what you find, and then we get those documentations update, and even fix any bugs if you find some. So, please let us know.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of the things that are breaking changes, and there are a number of breaking changes, are just, we've renamed functions to make a bit more sense. We've moved some files around, inside of the ColdFusion framework, like the bug report has a slightly different, path. It can seem overwhelming, but a lot of that, as long as make sure you read through the compatibility guide and the upgrade guide. Luis always types up one of those, and if we're missing anything, holler at us so we can get it added in. If you go through, a lot of these things can be kind of find and replace fixes. Find everywhere where you use this function, and we've changed it now to be called this. It's not too bad. You just have to, dedicate a couple hours to sit down with your coworkers, split up the work, go through, find everything that's not going to be compatible. The core functionality of ColdFusion really is very much the same. It's just a lot of kind of smaller things that we, tweak and massage over time. Stuff that gets on our nerves, like how the get instance method worked, and we always wished we had done the arguments a little bit differently. Well, ColdFusion 6, that's our time to fix it. And so just check all your uses, make sure you update them, you'll be good to go.
Yep, for sure. So that's definitely important. The blog posts on our website talking about the release candidate, and obviously you guys know how to get a hold of us on Twitter and Slack, etc. Okay, and then John said he actually knows some people that are still using ColdFusion 3, and I believe it.
Say it isn't so.
Also, he says, plus the templates for creating apps from command box, see the documentation. And so, yeah, I know that Luis has been working on upgrading a lot of those too, so he's been working through the templates. But yeah, definitely good to get through that. And there are a lot of big decisions we have to make, and we don't make them lightly, right? We don't break stuff on purpose unless it's got a good reason. I mean, we've been arguing about that get instance for 2 years. We finally did it. So yeah, that's
sort of the ongoing problem as a framework or as a library author is once you put something out there, it's in use. And then you wish, I wish I'd done it a little bit differently. It's always, but if I change it now, I'll break all the code of people using it. And so you kind of have to collect up all these things you wish you'd done a little bit different and wait for a major release. Or if you're like Eric and Quick, you just change it right then and just do a major bump, and you're done.
Yep.
Which sometimes that actually sounds a little better.
Yep, sometimes. But yeah, then you have people like 18 versions behind.
Yeah, but I mean, each individual version is also a lot easier to upgrade. Sometimes I wonder, if you save up all your breaking changes and do them at once, if it's actually worse, because then you have like a big hurdle as opposed to like a bunch of little hurdles, for each thing. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter, but sometimes I think Eric's onto something.
Yep. He's a pretty smart guy sometimes. Don't tell him
sometimes. Wow, that sometimes is cold.
Yep. He's not here. He can't argue.
Hey, this was his week to be on, but he was busy, so I guess we get to, trash talk him a little bit.
Yeah.
In case anyone isn't aware of what we're giving Eric a hard time about, which we're not really, we're just being fun. With Eric's modules, he always instead of waiting to make breaking changes, a lot of our libraries, we're like, oh, we can't have a major release until like we move heaven and earth and come up with something. Eric's just like, oh, if you make a breaking change, bump the major version. We had a major release last week, so so that's why Quick is on version like 17 or something, because it's just whatever breaking changes you make, just bump the minor, major, or patch as semantic versioning requires. And so there's a really simple way of doing releases. I don't know. We have fun debating about it internally. Do you wait and only have a major release like once every year or two, or do you just bump the major version whenever you break something and not worry about it?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously
ways to do it.
With modules, like smaller modules, that's not so bad to bump all the time. But the frameworks, that's a different beast, I think, and that's the main difference between them.
Beastie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting, fun things trying to maintain libraries out there. But anyway, versioning is certainly one of them.
Yep. Okay, well, we have a quick reminder about the State of the CF Union survey. We would like you to definitely go vote on that, and the partial results are out there, and I'm wondering when they're going to close that. It's got to be coming up pretty soon here.
I don't know. It's a good question. Because when they do, I want to see about trying to get the data to pull some of those trends that we talked about from previous years.
Yeah, for sure. So TRCheck.com has the State of the Union survey and has some of the partial results as well. So definitely go check that out, and I will post.
What's fun in the partial result? Yeah, in the partial results, any of the questions in the State of the CF Union that has like a write-in box, like an other, it always includes the text that anybody typed in. And a lot of people don't type a lot of information, but like at the bottom where it just has some like generic comments, it's always kind of fun just to go through and see what people typed. Of course, it's completely anonymous unless they mention who they are in the comment. But I like going through and just seeing the kind of notes that people write as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move on to conferences. And last week we had a couple. So last week we had the Adobe ColdFusion Developer Week. So they had 10 sessions spread out over 5 days, morning and afternoon sessions. And they did have a little technical difficulties to start the week, but I think they got most of them ironed out. And there was a lot of great sessions. So I know a lot of people were on Twitter talking about Brian Class's Amazon talks. He's great. Obviously we had him talking about S3 into the box. And they also can't go too far without someone getting scared by Pete Freitag in a security session.
I think Pete should just show up with like a mask on and just he turns around like boogity. It'd be the same essential result as what he does anyway. He does it with code and scares the poop out of us.
Yeah, but see, if someone just scares you with a mask, it may scare you for a little while, but that code will keep you up at night for years.
Oh yeah. Every time Pete does a talk, I think Luis is out there going through the source code. Oh no, I'm sure we've done one of these problems somewhere.
Yep, for sure. And then Luis was actually speaking there last week too. So he did a revised version of my my Fluent API talk that I did it into the box. So he updated it for ColdBox 6. He added some extra goodness into that, and so that one's actually available on our live YouTube channel as well. But I believe if you register, even though it's past the event, you can still register for the the ColdFusion Developer Week. And if you've registered, you have access to get the recordings from that. So they're not available on the website that I could see, but I know that they usually have it. If you register, you get all the emails of all the links, and you can watch those sessions as well. But
so out of curiosity, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say, yeah, I heard that Charlie Earhart's session is really good. Dave Ferguson had a good session, and the Rex Chief was giving out lots of 2020 secrets. So talking about stuff like some REST function metadata as well, and stuff like that. So all sorts of interesting things. So a lot of good sessions. Definitely recommend checking them out. And then obviously there's more sessions that I mentioned as well. So you don't want to miss out on that.
Right. So I was going to ask, did they release like an attendee count at all? I know the first couple sessions almost just like crashed Adobe Connect. I assume because there's so many people, but I don't know if it actually showed how many people. Did we get a number on that at all?
I know Pete said that he had several hundred in his session. I know that they had almost 2,500 people register through the online registrations. So obviously not everybody was at every session, but when I was in the sessions, I couldn't see ever, like in the chat, there was no list of people. A lot of times you had a question answer thing, but so I couldn't tell. So I'm not sure if they released numbers, but like I said, I know there was several hundred showing up to most of the sessions, and
You said there were 2,500 people that.
they said between 2,500 and almost 3,000 people had registered for the event, and so they actually had to do some upgrades to make sure it could handle it.
Well, yeah.
But they also said that they run Connect with almost 1,000 people regularly with no issue. So unless
Well, I know that Adobe has different tiers of Connect. 'Cause I used to work at a big seminar company, and they used Adobe Connect to do big online webinars. And I know they paid a lot of money to have like a top bandwidth, you know, like installation of Adobe Connect server that they were using. So I mean, also what's interesting is I found working at that same online company, when you have a free webinar, usually you'll get about 40% of people that sign up that'll actually show up, which seems low, but we've seen the same percentages in our previous developer weeks. So even with 2,500 people, that's a 40% of that's about 1,000 people. So I mean, that's a lot of people all logging on at once. Now, usually what we've also seen with our developer week is like your first session will have like a ton of people, and it'll kind of, trickle off throughout the day. But I bet those keynotes had over 1,000 people connecting, which is not a small amount of bandwidth.
And I also recommend people think about how many kids were online last week rushing all their homework before the end of school. Because I know that was a mad rush in our cities. Everybody was finishing up, trying to get the grades in and everything. And no joke, I mean, my internet all that day was kind of sketchy for everything. So I don't know. I think that the internet, I mean, we had Google Classroom crash on us a couple weeks back. My wife was trying to enter some grades and stuff, but Google Classroom was down because that many people were trying to do it Friday night, get all their grades in. So you never know. So
Yeah.
but it was a good turnout, a good event. Like I said, technical difficulties aside, still a lot of great content from a lot of great speakers. So definitely check it out. And yeah, if you wanted to get in on the 2020 action, they had some sneak peeks. Even Brian Klass has mentioned some of the cloud functions in 2020 as well. So very cool. And then last week we also had Microsoft Build. Did you get to see any of those sessions, Brad?
No, I didn't, but I saw a lot of talk about it on Twitter and even some people in Slack. Apparently, Microsoft even finally, I don't know, I don't know if it was in conjunction with the conference, but I assumed it was. I saw that the Windows 10 terminal also finally came out of preview into a final release.
Yeah, the WSL2 or
Well, not that, just the actual terminal app.
Oh, okay.
Also was released. Giancarlo was talking to me about that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff, and obviously I don't do very much of the Microsoft, I guess, stuff, except for when I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, I use the terminal, I use Windows, I use VS Code, so when I think about it, there's quite a lot of stuff in there that I do use. So there was quite a lot of sessions that I was interested in, and I checked out quite a few of them. And if you go to mybuild.microsoft.com, they actually have a lot of the sessions that are recorded for viewing it later, so you can watch most of those. And it was kind of cool, like their keynote, because they're all doing remote. They're using their Teams product, which is like Slack, to do video calls, and they're chatting with different people, and they're all like showing their animals, and they're walking outside, and they jump from one device to another all seamlessly. And
that's clever.
It was pretty cool. It was just like a little chit chat, sort of thing, but it was pretty neat. And I liked it how, I don't know if it was planned or not, but Scott Hanselman was doing, talking during the keynote, and one of his kids snuck in the back, grabbed something, snuck out, and he kind of rolled his eyes a little bit and then continued. But it was pretty funny. Some people made animated GIFs out of it and put it on Twitter and stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
His kid's in his PJs, sneaking into his office. My kid's always sneaking here to grab gum or whatever. So
at least this kid was wearing clothes. It could have been worse, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was staged or not. I didn't see a response for that, but a lot of good content. They had like the creators of VS Code talk about how it went from nothing to blowing up overnight, and they talked about some cool things. And one of them we'll talk about as a VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. So I'll save some of the limelight for that. But pretty cool stuff. So definitely recommend go check that out too. So. I said almost all of their sessions are there. It's free, so go to mybuild.microsoft.com and check it out.
A couple people mentioned in the WSL2 in the chat, in case you're curious, I've had some people playing with it. I still use Windows 7 on my main PC because my motherboard's too old. I can't upgrade. I need to buy a new PC. So the whole WSL stuff, I'm like, I can't really use it regularly. But Giancarlo was doing a bunch of testing with Command Box on WSL2. So in case you're curious, it works from what he's saying pretty well. The only trick is if you want to be able to access the site, you have to bind it to like 0.0.0.0. So it binds on all IPs. That's the change in the WSL2, where if you bind only the local host, I guess you can't access it from outside or something. Anyway,
yeah.
but it's good to know people have already been testing Command Box on it. It seems to work pretty well. So I know that John Farr is always asking about Command Box on WSL. I'm sure he's been using it as well.
Yep.
I was hoping you would do the blog on Command Box or WSL2, John. You write it. We'll put it out. Like I said, I don't use WSL on my Windows 7 machine that I'm currently stuck on. My gosh, I'm like that ColdFusion 3 guy. I gotta fork out the money and just get a new computer so I can get a modern version of Windows.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good, and a lot of people are talking about how they can't use Windows, and like I switched back from Mac not too long ago, and it's surprisingly not as painful as I thought. And I mean, even now, like one of the big things I didn't like is I had to use PuTTY for SSH, but you can SSH from Command and PowerShell and everything else now, and I'm sure from the WSL2. So like just the built-in support with SSH keys and everything like that
Microsoft's
was gone.
Really closed the gap a little bit. I don't know. My theory is that like some Microsoft guy went to a developer conference and looked around the room and thought, crap, everybody's using the Mac here. Why is nobody developing on Windows? Or I don't know. Maybe that's just like a hypothetical situation, I imagine. And then they realized like, oh, that's right. We've made Windows so dumb. It's like, it sucks as a developer machine. So, I mean, I got to say there's a lot of things that I like in what I've seen. Now, there's a lot of annoying things about Windows 10, like the out-of-the-box behavior. You're like, oh, you can't create symlinks. You can't edit your host file. And I'm like, come on, these are like bread and butter of developers. But, they have like a developer mode you can activate that lets you do those things. So I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I don't mind a switch that turns it from like, I'm a stupid grandma sending emails to, no, really just let me use my PC. It doesn't bother me as much. So it's nice to see Windows closing the gap.
Yeah, I mean, they're shipping a kernel for the WSL2. Like, it's shipping inside of Windows. That's how much they like Linux now. So, and you can do a lot of Linux stuff on Azure as well.
There's just a lot of irony when one operating system starts shipping the kernel to a competing operating system. It's like if Ford cars started using Chevy engines because they were like, dang, they're just better than ours. You're like, what does that tell you about your engine? Anyway.
Yeah, apparently John Frost said you just insulted every grandma listening.
That's okay. They don't watch podcasts.
And then,
Charlie, watch a podcast.
And Charlie said he think that an old box would work well with Windows 10. I know that I tried to upgrade, 4 times, and it just crashed every time, right?
No, Charlie, I actually researched it. My motherboard, it was made in 2012, and it's actually incompatible with Windows 10. It took me forever to figure it out because the upgrades would just fail and wouldn't say why. But I finally figured it out because I tried to do the Windows upgrade back when it was free and it wouldn't work. And I finally traced it down, and my motherboard is actually incompatible. My motherboard is the grandmother. Yes, it's the grandmother board, as Scott Steinbach said. So I literally cannot install Windows 10 on this physical hardware, which sucks. I mean, it was a good machine when I bought it, but it's just old enough it won't work. I mean, heck, it's 8 years ago. Jeez. I got this machine when I started working from home, Gavin. Working from home for 8 years now.
That's pretty crazy. I'll have to send you a link. I got an Amazon a Dell box, and for like really, really affordable price, and it's way better than most Macs out there still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have like a power spec, just desktop PC I got from Micro Center. But my wife just started using a laptop because I have a couple Asus laptops that I really like. They're gaming laptops. You can get for about $1,000. They have really good specs. It's really tempting to just like switch my main machine over just to be my laptop with all my external monitors.
That's not hard. I mean, I ran 5 off mine, no problem. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tempting because because Luis has done it for years. When I go to a conference, I just take my machine with me. I don't have to have a separate machine. I don't know. Anyway, this is all completely irrelevant to the the podcast. But
Microsoft stuff, pretty cool. Yeah, lots of options.
Windows ME. Dan, Windows ME booted up faster than any version of Windows. It just crashed twice as often. That was the trade-off.
Yeah, they just never shut it down. Yeah. Scott says Windows hates him. Yeah,
Wow.
it's mutual. Anyway, so we still have one more conference at least in May. So on Thursday this week, May 28th, we have DockerCon, which is going to be live online.
Never think
and
I love to
free.
hate Docker. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with Docker. I love it, and sometimes I hate it. Depends on if it's working at the moment.
Yeah. I know we're doing a lot with it lately and everything. I definitely like it. There are some weird stuff every once in a while that just makes you want to remember that you're a coder.
Well, the thing is that when I hate Docker, it's usually because I don't know what I'm doing. Just when I get off into a corner I really haven't learned about, that's really why I hate it. It's not that Docker does anything wrong, it's that I don't know what I'm doing. So, to be fair,
yeah,
I usually hate that I don't know what I'm doing at that moment in Docker, and then I have to figure it out. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But
yeah, it's a few weird.
DockerCon's in 2 days, right?
Yep, exactly. Thursday, I'm gonna have to cancel some meetings so I can make that. Definitely want to check that out. They got 3 sessions streaming simultaneously, and then they got to have a few live streams from some of the Docker captains that'll be doing interviews and everything too. So there should be a lot of great content around that. But yeah, it's all free and available at docker.com/DockerCon. So I'll post that for the chatters and live chat here. Yeah.
Sweet. Do you think somebody would pay us just to attend all the conferences and then tell them what they missed? Could that be a job? We just get a Patreon page. We're like, we'll go to all the conferences for you. We'll tell you what you need to know. I'm just saying that could be a viable business plan.
Well, some people do that, and then they do interviews with people as well, and then sell the videos to other people. Their sponsors pay for them to do the videos.
A plan emerges.
Yeah. Except for right now, it's kind of tough.
True.
And in the world of conferences, our Into the Box conference we had a couple weeks back did not have workshops, but we have workshops coming to you in June. So we've basically delayed them so we could have more time to organize them and get other people organized as well. So we have 2 virtual live training workshops in June. We announced last week that we have 3, but we had to postpone the quick workshop, unfortunately. So we will be bringing that back very soon. Basically, the 2 we have, I will be leading the ColdFusion 0 to Hero on June 4th and 5th, and Luis Mahano will be leading the ColdFusion Hero to Superhero API Edition June 18th and 19th. So basically, it's over 2 days. We have 2 6-hour days broken up by lunch and some breaks. But it's going to be 9 to 12 Central and then 1 to 4 Central. So hopefully it meets everybody's time zone requirements. And then we have the information available on autosolutions.com/events.
So a veritable 12 hours of training.
Yep. And so the price is up there. I believe the price is $8.99 for the conference. For the workshop. But I believe our podcast 10 will still get you 10% off because you listen to the podcast. So you guys can save 10% and register for that. And as I mentioned, we will be doing the quick one later, and then we'll be working on Testbox, containerization, and Charlie Earhart was meant to be doing a workshop as well. And so we're going to be talking to him about getting some dates scheduled for him as well. So basically, you're not going to miss out. We're just going to be spreading them out over the next couple of months. And if these are popular and people like doing them, we might try and do these more regularly in general, because we're always being asked, when are you going to do your next training? And obviously dates right now for the other ones are a little bit up in the air. We were planning on doing a training in Singapore, one at CF Camp, and also in Vegas at CF Summit, but we're still waiting on those dates to be confirmed. So
I think there's a good chance those may turn into online trainings.
What I said, John asked, did you say conference attendees get a 10% discount off? Is there a coupon? I said no. The podcast listeners, if you use podcast 10, you will get a 10% discount. I know that they emailed out about the trainings, I believe, to all the attendees. I'm not sure if they had a discount code in there or not. I will double check and see if the attendees get a better discount code than the podcast 10 one, but that podcast 10 is basically good for anything on Eventbrite. So podcast 10 will get you 10% off pretty much all of our stuff. So we want to say thank you for listening and watching. So as we mentioned, June 4th and 5th next week, that'll be me taking that training. hopefully you guys will see you there. It was only a 3-person minimum, so as long as we get 3 people, we'll be doing it.
You're taking the training? I hope you learned something.
Yeah, hopefully. I'll be leading that training. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, let us know. But the information is available on autosolutions.com/events. Also, we mentioned Seeif Summit. Right now, the tentative dates are October 28th and 29th. Charlie's in the chat. Charlie, did they mention anything about Seeif Summit West during last week's things? I did not see
I've heard some
official.
rumors that it's likely not going to happen, and we're just waiting for the internal gears to turn at Adobe to finalize it. I noticed just now the sign-up button on their site appears to have been deactivated. It doesn't do anything when you click on it.
Okay. Well, yeah,
so,
I just wasn't sure if maybe I missed an announcement last week at the ColdFusion Developer Week. So.
Yeah, I don't think anything's been announced officially. I was chatting with a couple people on the inside the other day, and they seemed inclined to be under the impression it wasn't going to happen, but just hadn't been finalized. But I mean, that's obviously not any kind of official response, but
yeah, and Charlie confirmed nothing to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we can go forward. Things are opening up all over the place, and it's not the end of the world yet, so who knows? We will see.
The problem is, I mean, things are opening up, but like for the small places, so I mean, this still falls in the category of 500 people in one room at a time. So I don't know, where we'll be by October, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So we'll let you know as soon as we hear something official. Charlie did confirm nothing was mentioned at the Developer Week last week, so that he heard. Okay, and then CF Camp, we're still in the same boat too. So, but hopefully we'll get some virtual conferences or do something at least. I know everyone's just dying for more content, so we can get that out there. So, more webinars or something.
CF, man.
Yep, exactly. Gotta get our fix. Okay, well, let's get into some blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So here we have a blog post from Steve Nealon. He's been back in the ColdFusion world for a little bit now. He was working on other stuff for a while. But this blog post is talking about how you don't need to make everything an object.
That's heresy for a Java developer. Everything has to be an object, even objects.
Yeah, so in this one here, basically he was talking about this process that he was working on. And basically this report was timing out. And so he even bumped the request timeout from 10 to 20 to 30 minutes. And instead of actually timing out, it just started failing with Java heap errors. So he got a clue. So basically what he was doing, he was querying the database, converting the query object into an array of structures, and then converting that into an object, populating the object from the structure, appending the object onto an array of objects, looping over the array and looking for a description and IDs, basically. And so what he did, just take out the object steps. Basically kept it as an array of structures and looped through it looking for items, because the object didn't do anything special to what he was doing. And basically, instead of taking 30 minutes and being a Java heap error, he got it down to, like 2 minutes, basically. So, he talked about best case only thinking and blindly following patterns. And so he made some good points here. So, definitely think it's a good little read. So check it out.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good post. I hadn't even seen it yet, but I like it.
Fresh off the press.
ColdFusion developers, I think, have sort of swung like a pendulum, a bit. ColdFusion started out like super quick and dirty, and that was kind of its features. You had these super easy structs and arrays, and you could get this, super useful data back from queries, and you just do it. And then the early 2000s, we were like, we need to be a real programming language. We need to do everything Java does. Everything's going to be objects in Java and object-oriented programming. But then we kind of, swung to an overcomplicated style. I say we. I mean, there were elements of people that would try to overcomplicate things. At least, ColdFusion makes something so easy, but we have to wrap it in abstraction to feel like we're doing something. But the performance from that abstraction layer of ColdFusion doesn't always allow that to work well. So, I mean, I kind of like posts like this that are saying, hey, there's nothing wrong sometimes to just doing a good old-fashioned query object, and just using some of the built-in stuff and not adding the layers over it.
Yeah,
So
like when I work with JSON APIs and I get like an array of structs from the database and I make objects and then turn it back into an array of structs, I'm like, yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I think
again,
sometimes I think too much encapsulation can almost lead to those sort of things. You know, you write these like uber black box things, and you're like, you don't have to worry about what the code is. But then when you actually get a holistic look of what a page request does, you realize you transform your data like 17 times. You know, and you're like, well, do I really need to do that? You know, sometimes maybe it doesn't matter. It's negligible. Other times, like you know, like Steve Nealon's post pointed out, you realize it's just an incredible amount of overhead for something simple.
yeah, I mean, we were doing some work with Quick for a client, and we had one of those cases where they wanted a front end element that had basically every employee of this, or every contractor. And so, we looked at the comparisons and everything looked good, but when you say, okay, I want every record, and you're passing back 50,000 records, that extra, 10, 50, 100 milliseconds per record adds up very quickly. And overall, like the small numbers of records, it was negligible, like really wasn't a big deal. But
Mm-hmm.
when you start processing huge numbers, it does add up, even if you're using Quick ORM. Quick is in the land. I mean, yeah, there was a very small difference, but it just added up. So
Which underscores the value of a tool like the profiler in Fusion Reactor.
mm-hmm.
Because when you get that request, you're like, man, this request seems like it used to be faster, but it takes 25 seconds now. What's it doing inside of itself? Fusion Reactor profiler? Oh, look at that. I'm creating objects for 20 seconds solid or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's my daily plug for Fusion Reactor.
Yeah, when you go into the database, it's like, it's only taking like 1 second for the query. Why is it taking 45 seconds to return?
Yeah, I mean, and that's super common. You look and your queries are super fast, and that's all the ColdFusion debugging shows you. And the question is, where's my time going? And you have to be able to pinpoint all the other stuff you're doing with the data that actually, adds up.
For sure.
Anyway,
Yep.
moving
okay.
on.
Yep. Next, we have a tweet from Zach Spitzer about a Lucy. So support for same-site cookies just landed in Lucy 5.3.7. So I sent a tweet to James Moberg, who's been asking for this for 3 years now, and Adobe's just added it, and now Lucy has too. So he says PHP did it in 2018, so we're running a little bit slow.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I made some crack about cold glacier similar speeds. But at least it's there. So yeah, it points out the ticket and the GitHub repo, and a little link there so you can find out more about it.
That's good.
Okay, we also have.
By the way, you mentioned Lucy 537. Just on a side note, I said how Lucy 536 just came out. From some chatter I heard internally from Lucy just over the weekend, I believe 537, which has been in the snapshot phase for a while now, they're planning on releasing the release candidate of 537 fairly soon. So in the next week or two, I would expect to see 537 come out in RC, of course. And I think 536 was an RC for about 1 month, if I timed it. I had gone back and looked at the release date. So just so if you have an idea in your head when this will come out, 537 looks like it'll go into release candidate in the next week or so, and then typically about a month after that it should go final if everything goes as planned. But
Cool. Very good. Okay. We also have a blog post from Matthew Clemente. So he was working with Command Box 5 and ran into some CFHTTP SSL errors. And so basically he walks it through. I like how he breaks down
I
the
was helping
issue.
him.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I was going to say I was helping him figure this one out, and I think this may explain some random HTTPS errors I've seen people on Slack had that we've never been able to figure out. Unfortunately, I can't always go back and find those Slack conversations to try to follow up with these people. But he'd noticed that he had problems connecting to some HTTPS URLs using like the CFHTTP tag from within a server that was Adobe, but he could make the same connection on a Lucy server using the same version of Java. And what's interesting is I remember there's a little kind of fix that we do in Runwar. Back in the Adobe ColdFusion 11 days, we had problems where SSL wouldn't always work correctly unless we set this ECC disable flag, which is just kind of it's a built-in Java flag that disables a certain I don't even know what ECC stands for. It's elliptical curve or some nonsensical SSL things. Anyway, when we added this system property in to command box servers, it would allow SSL to work correctly on Adobe ColdFusion back in version 11. And that's the only thing that I knew of that Runwire does differently between Adobe and Lucy servers, at least in regards to anything related to SSL. So I suggested that Matthew tried, turning off that setting to allow it to run as normal, and it actually fixed it, which is really interesting. Oh, there we go. Try to put in there elliptic curve cryptography, which is about as cryptic of a name as it comes. So I told Matthew, I was like, well, this sucks because, without this special JVM arg, certain versions of Adobe wouldn't work in the past. And now it turns out that with it, certain versions of Adobe aren't working, or maybe it's Java combinations. We weren't sure. So I didn't want to just take it out for fear of breaking the opposite scenarios. Matthew fired up a little Travis build, which was actually really clever. And he created this little matrix that basically started up like 20, 25 servers here. And he tested several versions of Adobe and Lucy on multiple versions of Java with multiple versions of that flag being enabled or disabled to kind of get like a table of, what combinations work and what combinations don't work, which is really nice and also really frustrating because if you look, the results are all over the board.
Yeah.
Some combinations work, some combinations don't work. And I don't even know if it's related to the actual Java version or related to the Java libraries that, Adobe is using. I mean, I don't even know what that silly elliptic curve cryptography thing does. All I know is at the time when we had Googled, there were, this is what I love, Stack Overflow answers that say, just use this JVM arg and everything will be fine. No explanation of why, just, slap it in and you're good to go. Well, it turns out you're apparently only good to go in some cases. So until we can figure out something that will work for everything, at least this chart may help you figure out if you want to disable that setting now based on your random combinations of CF Engine and Java.
Now, I also thought it was weird too that TryCF failed sometimes and Google succeeded, but then the opposite for the Adobe engines almost. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, without knowing the root cause, that's the problem, because there could be factors at play that we don't understand yet, especially since we don't even know what the heck the setting really does. As Charlie said, that's the problem with copying something off Stack Overflow that doesn't really tell you what the root cause is, because you don't really know what factors play into it. So, there's no telling TryCF. It could be related to the operating system it's on. It could be related to, environment variables and that specific environment that Java is picking up. It's tricky to debug these things. But kudos to Matthew for at least coming up with a huge list of what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
He just did this last week, so maybe we can find some patterns in here and figure out just why exactly it works sometimes and it doesn't other times. Because it's frustrating when, parts of your CF engine just randomly, I say randomly, it's not random, but it feels random, don't work in some scenarios and you can't figure out why.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Anyway, this is definitely an ongoing.
It's funny because it looks like in Java 11 the Google one is the one that fails, but in Java 8 it's the TryCF one that fails on Adobe.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Very interesting.
I haven't figured out the pattern yet, but hopefully we can figure something out so it quote just works end quote for everybody. But that can be elusive.
I wonder if the other thing is too, if you're hitting different. Like Google servers or the load balancers or something, they've got slightly different certificates, and that's
and that's what Charlie just said. He mentioned in his final note it could be down to the certs. That's why there's so many different factors at play. And I understand enough about SSL certs just to be dangerous, but sometimes I really feel like I don't understand half of what's really going on with SSL certs sometimes. At least when they quit working and you're like, crap, why aren't they working? You realize there's so much complexity to what's really going on behind the scenes, and so much variation in different SSL certs and how they're generated and the keys that they use and the algorithms that they use. That's when it starts to get to a point where I feel like I don't always understand just exactly what's going on. But anyway, blog post, at least if nothing else, is documentation for the time being of our research.
Yep, interesting for sure. Okay, well, up next we have a blog from Ben Idao. And in this one here, he's going back to an error where he ran into where you can't cast object type struct to a value of an image, type image. And so this is a weird error he got back in January when they were moving from 5.2.9 to 5.3.3 with Lucy. And basically he said they had no idea why it was happening and couldn't reproduce it, whatever, but they found some hacky code, he puts it, when they switched from ColdFusion 10 to Lucy, and where basically they were getting a new image and then basically pasting it over to another image and then removing the RGB color code, and this worked previously and stopped working. So he sort of walked through this process. If you guys are doing image stuff and you ever see this type of weird error, can't cast object type struct to a type of image, some of this may give you some hints, but I think basically what was happening was because they were removing the color code by doing a copy paste, that was just confusing the engine completely.
Yeah, I'd like to see a ticket put in for this. Unfortunately, Ben said it's not an error that happens immediately. It's something that happens after the server's been online for a while, which sounds like it's a bit of a trouble to reproduce.
Yeah, and that's what he said originally. He couldn't figure it out, and then
It certainly seems like it's a bug in Lucy, but
yeah,
I flipped through this on my phone. It looks like they also weren't capturing the full stack trace as well. And when you're dealing with these sort of low-level Java errors, it's very important to have like the full stack trace that shows all the internal Java lines. And so in Ben's case, he was only capturing the lines of ColdFusion code, the tag context, which unfortunately doesn't have as much information as you need to really hone down to the Java behind Lucy that's actually having the issue.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I love those ones that are hard to reproduce.
I know.
You try and get a bug out to someone and they always close your ticket, can't reproduce. I'm like, even when you do get it to reproduce, it doesn't work on their machine. One of those. So we have another blog post by Ben as well, and looks like he's actually been testing on 5.3.6 for Lucy here. I like how he has the version in the title. Very useful. But he's also, this is going back to something he was doing before about canonicalizing URLs. And so before he was talking about how HTML entities will actually blow up because it basically double encodes them because it actually converts them. So we talked about that last week, I think. But so this one here, you write an option, basically a little function to help you with that. But he does caution you, he's not a security expert. He does work for some, but he's not a security expert. But basically what he went is, talking about how this whole process is a trade-off, but he tried to walk through it. So it's kind of interesting,
I saw this blog post on my phone because I was traveling over the weekend. I'll be honest, I didn't quite understand what he was trying to do. At first I assumed the blog post was on just encoding things, but that didn't seem right because there's obviously just functions built into ColdFusion for, encoding something for a URL. Canonicalizing is usually dealing, like you said, with things that are double encoded. But if he has things that are double encoded, that usually points to some sort of upstream issue where you're encoding something twice. You needed to stop doing that as opposed to trying to clean it up. So yeah, I was a little curious as to the actual use case for this. Why he was into a place where he had things that appeared to be double encoded. He was trying to canonicalize.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I remember in the old days we used to use this to try and get a URL that was, basically one URL for your SEO stuff, and you'd take all the inputs and try and figure it out based on that. And so it would generate one. So it doesn't matter if they reordered the URL variables or whatever, it would give you one URL to use. And so that was kind of the key, and that's what I think he was doing here, where he's basically looping through the pieces of it to split the URL up and get all the different parts.
See, I wouldn't have written a function to parse the URL.
Well, that's why he also mentions in the bottom here. He's probably libraries out there to do that. If you have any, please do that.
Yeah, I did a whole blog post on this once several years ago. The JavaNet URL class has been around the JDK forever, and that does exactly this. You hand it a string, and it parses it, following every possible valid URL, which usually custom parsers don't account for everything URL can have. And then you can just call getters on it. You can get the protocol, you can get the host, you can get the hash, you can get the path, you can get the port. The last thing I would write, to be honest, would be a custom URL parser. Just knowing that Java class is super easy to use. I should try to dig out the link to that. I had done a blog years ago on my personal blog about it. Because I found myself in the need to parse a URL, and I realized, oh, look, Java comes with a class that does exactly what I need.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I found it an interesting process. And as he said, it's a good code kata, trying to go through that process. But he did ask for any URLs or libraries that do that. So we definitely want to do that for sure. So
I'm trying to find my own site via Google, but I don't think Google gives it much page rank. Here we go. Fun with javanet.url. I wrote this in 2008.
Wow,
I
12
think
years ago. Dang.
This has probably been in the JDK since the beginning. Yeah, get file, get host, get path, get port, get protocol. I'm gonna slap this out. I'm gonna have to put a comment on Ben's thing and be like, "Hey, you could replace that all with like one line of code."
Yep, for
but
sure.
I'm still curious why he's needed to canonicalize stuff. But at least the parsing of the URL could have been a lot simpler, I think.
Very cool. Okay, and then we have another blog post, this one from Pete Freitag, and I really wanted to share this one because, as we mentioned, his talk last week at CF Developer Week, securing CF is a vital one. You should definitely check it out. It is scary, I do warn you, but he's got his slides here for some tactics for securing your ColdFusion code. He's got a bunch of source code and examples here, and then basically this is his bank of insecurity app that he uses in his full-day ColdFusion security training class, which is a great class, by the way. If you haven't taken it, definitely recommend doing that too. So yeah, so this little blog post has a bunch of links and everything, and if you look on Twitter under the ColdFusion hashtag, I know Charlie was sharing his slides and Brian Class was sharing theirs as well, so a lot of great content's there. Hopefully they'll get a summary blog post out for all the slides and the recordings for the ColdFusion Developer Week. But Pete's is available there if you'd like to check that out, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so next on our list, Brad would talk about Command Box. Been there, done that. Let's skip. Okay, we have another one from Charlie. So Charlie, during the Developer Week last week, they were talking about the CF 2020 and the pre-release, and so Charlie blogged about how to actually get in there. And so they've changed it, I guess. So announced by Rex Seeif at the Dev Week presentation that you can just email to CF pre-releases at adobe.com if you'd like to get access to the CF 2020 release. And so Charlie basically just made that available, whatnot. Whatever. Here it says, finally ask for what's in it or when's it coming, and more. These things can't be publicly discussed. So basically, if you want the inside information on what's happening and when it should be there, go join the release, and then you get access to all that information. Oh, pre-release, sorry. CF pre-release at adobe.com. Thanks, Charlie, for that. I guess I added an S. I definitely have problems with letters. Ask my wife. Well, almost been here 20 years and I still can't speak American.
It's American, Gavin. You're saying it wrong.
Exactly. I keep adding letters here and there.
Looks like Matthew Clemente had another live coding session, this time on fat arrow functions.
Yes.
Is it right to fat shame the arrow functions? Just anybody ever considered their feelings?
No, but as I like Matt's trial, learning by trial and error. I definitely support this method. I do it all the time. But yeah. Again, another good video of his there, and he's pretty regular now. He switched to Wednesday 8:30 Eastern, I believe, or is it Thursday?
He's been Wednesday most nights, I believe, from what I see come across Twitter.
Yeah, so definitely check him out, and it's pretty interesting. Like I say, last week he made a module that messed with the banner and command box. Even though you already have one that does it, he decided to create his own.
Well, yeah, so I was giving him a hard time because he created a banner customizer, and I have a module I'd created that lets you overwrite the little command box ASCII art. But he kind of took it a different direction where you could actually like, tweak how the version number shows up. You could have a custom quote. So it was a cool little experiment.
But I like the quotes you have. Take that, fish.
Stupid fish.
Stupid
Take
fish.
that, stupid fish.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a bit of an inside quote. People probably scratch their head when they come across that one.
Yeah, that was from a great night eating Greek food at Seeif Summit.
See, that came out of one of our conference get-togethers.
Yeah. So if you were there, you would have been in on that inside joke.
You were one of the 8 people.
Yeah, we put a dent in the ocean that night. Take that, stupid fish. Anyways.
The memories.
But yeah, so Matthew Clemente's YouTube channel has all those videos, so definitely go check them out. I know I'm going to be watching a lot more of them, watch them a little more, because I know I'm going to miss stuff when I usually speed through them the first time, so I'm looking forward to seeing some more. So every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, check them out on YouTube, streaming live.
So what we got for CFML jobs this week, Gavin?
Well, the jobs last week only had like 25 listings, and now we're up to like 34 ColdFusion positions posted.
Dang.
From 29 companies across 17 locations in 5 countries. So I guess the jobs are picking back up. We have 3 new ones listed. One of them in Canberra, Australia. So a ColdFusion developer there. And then we're also looking for ColdFusion developers in Bangalore, Karnataka, in India. And they're looking for a full-time web developer, ColdFusion programmer in South Bend as well. So we got one in 3 different countries. Yeah, so a lot of good information out there on the Get CFML Jobs website. And I also linked directly to the one for the Canberra one, because I saw that on Twitter as well. So a little more information possibly there.
Ooh, look at this. This South Bend, Indiana one says this: code is expected to be complete, including comments, efficient and tested. Woo! They have high hopes. I love that. Look at that.
Yeah.
You go work there, you better comment your code, baby, and you better test it. I love it.
Yeah.
Laying down the law.
Exactly.
By the way, can you have that done by 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Yep. Okay, so now comes the time where we talk about the ForgeBox module of the week. And this one was actually released a couple weeks back, but I wanted to spotlight it. So this one was Quick Commands by Eric Peterson. So we have quite a lot of command box commands for scaffolding, and this is a new one out that helps you create quick entities. So you can create with table names, attributes, and relationships all from a command box command, and that'll scaffold out the entity and generate all the relationships and everything for you from that scaffolding. So automation is a big deal, and
isn't this the one that Eric just created the other week?
Yeah, he created it basically right in time for the new quick release and into the box. So
yeah.
So let me pull that up for you.
The description on ForgeBox is a little sparse, and by sparse I mean
not
empty.
There.
That's fine. He just made it. I'm sure he'll be filling it out sooner.
Yep. So if you see over here, he's got the LP quick. And so
El Pete. They call me El Pete.
I'm sure you'll add the README soon. But if you go in here to the create, you can see all the documentation built in, and this command box picks up all of this automatically for you for the help. So he's well documented here. So you can see, you can pass in the name of the entity, the table. You can talk about what the primary key is, pass in a comma separated list of attributes to create. You can also do the relationships, choose the directory where you want to put them in. You can name the file, choose to override it or not. So, and if you're looking at commands, Matthew Clemente wrote a couple of commands in one of his videos, but this sort of gives you the idea of how to go through scaffolding as well. So it does quite a lot of work in this one. It's a pretty complex one, especially when it comes to creating relationships, because Quick has stuff like has one, has many, belongs to many, has many through, etc. So a lot of interesting things in there. But yeah, just a quick command to help making your working with Quick a little easier. And then obviously, if you want to add some functionality there, talk to Eric or put a pull request in, and we can try and make those quick commands even better.
So next we've got our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. Looks like Codespaces. This looks brand new.
Yeah, so this is actually something that I found out a lot more from the MS Build. So part of the keynote they were talking about it, and they actually discussed it. So do you know what it is, Brad?
This is the ability to have like the mobile editing environment, isn't it?
Yeah, so your instant div environment. So this is built into GitHub, and basically you get the full Visual Studio Code experience without leaving GitHub. So for our projects, and this is what I'm excited to do for some of the Audis projects, is basically set up the development environment for our ColdFusion platform or TestBox or any of our other products that are open source products. We basically set them up inside the repo, and then someone can just click basically, open Codespaces, and then it opens up your full environment. So what it does in the background is it spins up a Docker container with all your basically everything you need.
So this isn't just for you, but you can have anybody that comes across GitHub can just click the button and they can get the environment as well.
Yeah, that's the idea. Now, I'm
This
not
could
sure about pricing.
revolutionize sending pull requests.
Exactly. So if someone wants to work, don't have to worry about downloading all the dependencies and everything else. I mean, that's the best thing is you have everything like the terminal built in, all in your browser. And the coolest thing is if you use Visual Studio Sync, you can actually synchronize your settings. So when you open it up, it automatically pulls in your theme and all that stuff. So you work how you like to work with code, but you don't have to worry about installing anything because all the dependencies are basically built into it. And so
is there a way to have like command box already installed in the Docker container that it spins up?
Well, I know that there's certain things for terminals and stuff like that. You have access to it. I mean, it sets up SSH keys. Now, I don't know about command box because it's an external binary, how that would work. But because of you can definitely use a lot of things. I'm not sure where that would go. So that's the only thing I was curious about. I'm not sure how that ties in. But, I mean, you definitely have the option to use, they say you can use dot files, basically to that in your code extensions to create, consistent environments. So basically everyone has that. But the cool thing is, like you said, you can use any device at any time. And so that means you can pull it up on a browser or an iPad or something because it's using the browser. The browser has the VS Code plugin built into it with all the dependencies. You could actually work off of some of those things. So you can get all the power of VS Code in your browser, set up all the dependency needed, no matter what you're running.
Yeah. So it looks like you have to sign up for early access.
Yep.
I'm clicking sign up now. It asks you to check the checkboxes of what programming languages you develop in.
Okay.
So I checked Java and I checked the other and I typed in CFML/ColdFusion. So
Cool.
it looks like they're looking to have some built-in support for several of these languages. We should try to reach out to them and ask them what it'll take to get CFML as a supported language. But I have a feeling they would be a lot more inclined to talk to us about that if there were vast numbers of people all signing up saying, "Hey, I want ColdFusion and CFML." So
Yep.
maybe everybody listening should go click that button and type in CFML.
Yep, and tell all your friends too. So and that's what Charlie said. If you click the link, the only question is what language to develop, and he said it would be interesting to see if indicating CFML will help or hurt. But I think if there's enough people, it definitely would help. But yeah, definitely click Java as well, and maybe something else big there. But I know
John says he requested access 2 weeks ago, so I don't know if they limit how many people they let in or what.
Yeah, because this was announced at the GitHub conference a couple weeks ago that I didn't go to, but there's a few frequently asked questions there. I'll post the link and we already have it posted there. Thanks, Brad. So everyone can go check it out. But it's kind of interesting. So there is some pricing. It has not been finalized, so I'm not sure what it'll be. But it says Codespaces is free during the beta, and the code editing will always be free in GitHub, but these Codespaces may be additional. So maybe if something quick and simple, you can just use the normal editing. But if you need to go open things up, run all the tests and everything, you can do that from your phone when you're on vacation. So definitely looks cool. And this here sort of talks about the difference of VS Code. So it sets up a cloud-hosted and containerized customizable VS Code environment. And after you set up that, you can connect to your Codespace through the browser or through VS Code. So if you want to, you can open up VS Code and basically tunnel into that from there. So that's pretty interesting too. And
It'd be interesting if Ortus did our own version of this, where we spin up a Docker container that has all the ColdFusion stuff, based on all your JSON files you have in there, automatically does the box install, automatically sets up the SSH keys, and we charge $2 less than whatever GitHub charges.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the pricing we do is we take, whatever NPM is doing or whatever, and we say, okay, we'll charge 10% of that. And it's still crazy because it's like, ForgeBox Enterprise or whatever. I know the pricing for that, I think we did the math and it was like, yeah, well, let's charge 10%. And it was still a number that scared a lot of people off. It's crazy how much those places charge.
Pricing is weird. You have a lot of online services that are a few bucks a month. And then all of a sudden you had the enterprise version and it's like $5,000 a month, you're like, holy cow. It's like a different, universe of pricing as soon as you get into the enterprise level services.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Yep, for sure. John Farrar said the project was open source. He got it running locally before, VS Code in the browser, and they have a name for that, the actual editor itself. But yeah, there's definitely some options. I mean, and we could always set up a containerized version for dev environments. I know Amazon does the AWS and dev platforms as whatever too. You can basically just connect your VS Code into whatever you're running. You can run it up there and do whatever. So I think it's an option for sure.
When I was at DevNexus in February, I saw some really cool, like Red Hat and Google Cloud Platform. They all had these little sets of laptops you could sit down and you could experiment with their tools. And they had some really cool things. You could go through a tutorial building like a Java Spring Boot app or whatever. But it was all based on like a Docker container. It would spin up right as you sat down in your chair and you click the start button. And they had like a little web-based editor. It all ran in this little Docker container that had Java and everything automatically installed in it. And when you were done, just the container would shut down. Just interesting because it's almost kind of the same basic idea. They were using it for just demonstrative purposes at the conference, but it sounds a lot like what this GitHub Spaces, Codespaces is, but just more like a general purpose thing.
I wonder if it'll work with Play with Docker. You get 4 hours of time for free, just spin it up, run it, connect to it.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, the things we would look into if we had unlimited time, Gavin.
Yeah.
Speaking of time, we are overtime.
We are overtime for sure. Okay, so last but not least, we want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. And again, thank you, Gary Knight, who bumped up his contribution. We really appreciate that. So we should give him a special gold star on our list today. But we have a lot of great Patreon supporters available at patreon.com/ordersolutions. You can find all the different packages you can support us with. And we appreciate everyone who takes that step and financially supports us. So we really do thank you. And without it, this podcast, products like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, etc. would not be possible. So we thank you. And today I will run through the names. So thank you, Benedal, Brett DeLine, Calvin Stanton, Dali, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Didier Lesnicki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight. Super thank you for upping your contributions. Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Eriksson, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamery, Kai Koenig, Laxman Tirahadi, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Ryan Hughes, Scott Steinbeck, Sean Oden, Stephen Klotz, Synaptrix, and Yogesh Mither. So if you want to see that full list, you can go to ordersolutions.com/about-us/sponsors, and you can find out about some of our heavyweight sponsors there too, and other companies that support us, and how to support us as well. Okay, any last words, Brad?
Try the veal. It's great.
Sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for joining in. It was a long one, but I think it was a good one. And don't forget, DockerCon this week. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.